Hello and welcome back to the Greenhorn Photo Taker. Today is something a little bit different. A photo dump of sorts, or maybe a photo and video dump of sorts. Over the past couple of weeks, pretty windy out. Over the past couple of weeks, I've taken my new A7 IV out many times. But really not to a location that I thought was worthy of a specific entry into my YouTube catalog. So instead, let me just feature some of the best moments that have happened over the course of the past month, all shot on the A7 IV. So as I mentioned, I upgraded from my APS-C Sony a6600 to the Sony a7 IV, and it has been, for the most part, a positive experience. There are certainly times when I wish I had my a6600 with me, mainly for the weight and size of it. I can't carry around my entire kit when I have the full frame. My Sigma 150 to 600 is just way too big and way too heavy to carry around in the woods. So that's a real downside, and I think I'll have a separate video about that, so I'll put that aside for now. But I'm thinking of the Sigma 150 to 600 because for, I don't know, a month period of time, I've really enjoyed just sitting out on my front deck and seeing what I could capture with the moon. So this first video is really just a few minutes trying to capture the motion of the moon. Of course, we all know the moon moves through the sky, but it's really difficult, at least for me, to perceptually see how fast it moves unless there is something for reference in the screen as well. So here the moon is just passing by some branches of a tree in my front yard, and it was just very peaceful to sit and look through the back of the camera as the moon rose in the sky. While the moon was a success, I did struggle in the Delaware water gap. Here is a cascade that I really enjoyed the root system more than the flow of the cascade, but I thought just the roots weren't worthy enough for a picture, so I spent at least 90 minutes laying down almost in the mud trying to figure out how in the world to capture the roots and the cascade at the same time. I went entirely around this circle of water and really never found anything to my liking. Was that day a success? I enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed being out there, but no, it was not a success. I did not come away with anything that I was proud of. I did stop at some other locations. Here is the top of Sunrise Mountain, another place that I have a love-hate relationship with. So Sunrise Mountain is in Stokes State Forest. It is a beautiful open area on a ridgeline, but it's really semi-open. There's views to the east and west, but each one is obstructed by some type of foliage. So here in the early spring, there were just barely some buds on each one of these tree branches, but there was some low-level fog rising in the valleys this one was to the west. And it looked so great to the eye, but I couldn't find a way to capture it on the camera because all the wide expansive views that would have featured the frog, it was really obstructed. So I tried to zoom in with my 180 millimeter lens and just focus on the branches themselves and have the ridgeline in the back blurred out. It's okay, whatever. It's not a terrible picture. And then I tried the same thing just with the branches blurred out. So this was me just, learning the camera and having a little bit of fun. There was no keeper out of this one, even though it was a lovely evening. I did on that same day though head to Tillman Ravine, which I always end up at Tillman when I'm having a bad day and can't find a picture that I like. I go to Tillman Ravine because I know there's always something there I can shoot that looks new that I haven't shot before. So here is the split in the creek, in Tillman Creek, and what I really liked was the glow of the few bit of sun rays on the moss to the right and a little bit to the left. That struck me immediately. I was rushing against time and just came up with this quick composition. So two things, I love the light and the water flow at this exposure time. I don't remember what it is, I'll put it on the screen. It's my favorite water flow shot I've ever taken in terms of how the water looks. Very wispy, very streamy. The highlights aren't blown out, but there are highlights in the water as well that you can, specifically look at and tell a type of texture or a type of grain that isn't always present in this type of picture, at least for me. What I don't like about it, in the top I have trunks of two trees, it looks like. I should either exclude them next time or make them part of the scene and make this a little bit wider. But as it is, the trunks just look like they stand out to me as a problem. Not even sure if anyone else would notice it, but to me, I think that was a mistake in my composition. I also had the opportunity to head up to Glimmerglass State Park, just outside of Coooperstown, New York. It sits at the north end of Lake Otsego, which is the headwaters for the Susquehanna River that flows through Pennsylvania. So this was not a spectacular scene whatsoever. I was trying to scout for a sunset that I thought would be great the next day. It ended up being cloudy. I did not return. But this was a state park that is extremely crowded in the summer. It has a beach that a lot of locals go to. So I felt it was a little bit of a special moment for me that I could see it in this quiet moment without any other people around. But Glimmerglass State Park, just in a quiet moment with some ducks in the water, I really enjoyed, especially this last shot here, as the sun was pretty low and the golden hour was very evident. Back in New Jersey, I wanted to head up to High Point State Park and try to get a sunset photograph with the monument featured as part of the picture. So there is a nice vantage of the monument that has bedrock scoured by glaciers. You can see the scratch marks from the glaciers in the bedrock that leads right to the monument. So that was the goal for this day. The sunset didn't do what I wanted it to. A lot of the color was far away from the view of this monument, so I didn't really get a chance to photograph the scene that I was hoping for, but I still enjoyed the overall look to the area very much. And it ended up being more of a blue hour shot, but there's still some character in the clouds, as you can see. And just walking around trying to pick out individual little moments was very satisfying. In the end, I think there was one shot that I really liked of the monument and the clouds, with a little bit of warm glow to the picture as well. High Point State Park, it's only a few times during the year you can go see sunset. The park either closes at 4 in the winter or at 8 in the summer, which doesn't always lend well to when the sun sets. So in the early spring, if you want to see a sunset, that's the time to head out to High Point State Park. In Coooperstown, I did, of course, visit the Baseball Hall of Fame and spent maybe 6 hours there. And I brought the camera. And it was odd at times. You know, people were definitely giving me weird looks that I'm taking photos of so many exhibits. You know, because I really spent time. If I liked the exhibit, I would spend time there and try to find a composition that worked well without a reflection, right? When you're trying to take a picture through a pane of glass, it can be a pain in the... So, I mean, many of these photos were ultimately ruined because you could see either me holding up the camera or my bald head or someone else in the background. So yeah, definitely check out Coooperstown if you're ever in the area and a baseball lover. It's something that I've done probably 15 times in my life, but this is the first time I brought the camera. And I'm glad I did so. Very nice experience. My favorite day of the spring by far was back at Minnewaska State Park, which if you watch the channel, you know I love. But instead of my normal route to Gertrude's Nose, which is of course wonderful, I wanted to particularly photograph some of the pitch pines with the bedrock area in Millbrook Mountain, or around Millbrook Mountain. And what's been on my mind lately is Joshua trees. So heading back out to the West Coast this summer for a road trip, and one of the places that I'm visiting is Joshua Tree State Park. That's a national park. One of the places I'm visiting is Joshua Tree National Park. It's going to be 110 degrees in the summer. It's the worst time to go visit Joshua Tree, but I've never been there. I'm really looking forward to it because I love those Joshua trees. But I was thinking, my goodness, we have our own version of Joshua trees here back east. At least in my mind, the pitch pines that you see in the higher elevations in the rocky outcrops, they're my favorite tree. So I think they are our version of the Joshua tree. So I wanted to head out to Minnewaska State Park to a place that I typically blitz through as a means to an end. After Gertrude's Nose and the lovely open expanses there are a few other spots to look at spectacular views. But most people, including myself, typically blitz through this bedrock area with all the pitch pines. I've always said to I've always had it in mind that I should spend some time here. But every time I take the trek up to Minnewaska State Park, because of the distance, I end up wanting to see the expansive views more than anything else. This day I forced myself to only, I actually rode my bike to Millbrook Mountain on a carriage road and then hiked around for about 3.5, 4 hours. So I spent time specifically looking for tree shots. Now, I guess good news and bad news. It was a beautiful warm day, so I could spend as much time as I wanted out here, but the sky was absolutely horrible. Not a cloud to be seen, which is really poor in terms of photography. So instead, I tried to focus on what it might look like black and white, and I think that really did the trick. So it was a black and white photography day, and I came away with a few shots that I really like. These pitch pines are so unique in structure. No two trees look alike. The branches grow in different directions. Sometimes part of the tree looks naked, and the other part of the tree has all the branch work for it. Or perhaps some of them are low to the ground. They're just very unique looking trees. So they're really fun to photograph. And I had the place to myself, so I was able to lay down for a while and really work a composition without having my own hang-ups of people walking around wondering what the heck I'm doing. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this day shooting Minnewaska State Park in black and white. So there are two things I just found wrong with this composition. See if you can pick them out. Okay, the first is I don't love this dead looking part of the bush here. I like the bush, but this dead spot is drawing my eye way too much. And then, secondly, come on, Louie. Can't ever pack there. And before I rode my bike back to the parking lot, I also spent a few minutes on top of Millbrook Mountain shooting turkey vultures or chicken hawks, or whatever you want to call them, with my Tamron 70 to 180. Like I said, I can't carry my 150 to 600 around with me. I just can't do it unless I'm specifically going out for wildlife. But it still worked. The hawks were low enough or close enough to me that the Tamron worked. It was really a fun way to end the day. And again, I think black and white worked here for these hawks too. I never realized how beautiful they were with that white underwing. And this last one I really love. This is more of an artsy picture, right? I didn't mean to capture this style in the moment. It was really after the fact Darktable. But I converted it to black and white and just simply put a vignette around it. And honestly, it looks pretty darn cool to me. It looks like something that could be an album cover. So anyway, I guess the moral of that story is just go out and have fun, and maybe sometimes it works out even if it is unintentionally. And that leads us to the end. Thanks so much for watching. Get out and explore.